Ooh, I'm feeling a bit naked being up here. How does the thought of being naked in front of a group of strangers make you feel? Nervous? Self conscious? Maybe you feel excited? For as long as I can remember, I have been naked in front of strangers at public bathhouses in Japan. My mother is Japanese and my father is American. And for many generations, the Japanese side of my family has been in the Sento business, which are Japanese public bathhouses. I'm not going to share with you the history of the bathhouse. You can find that information on Wikipedia. Instead, I'm going to share with you a peek into the Sento through the eyes of when I was a little girl, and what that experience taught me about getting comfortable with exposure, and how I apply the Sento mindset to other areas of my life. So every night after dinner, I would grab my basket full of soaps and shampoos in one hand, and I'd bundle up my towel and my pajamas in the other. I'd slide on my aunt's sandals that were 2 sizes too small for my 10-year-old American-sized feet, and I'd waddle my way around the corner to our bathhouse. I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally dropped my underwear in the street, and I'd only realize it after I got out of the bath, and I'd find it in the dark on the way back home. So I get to the building, and I see my aunt sitting there at the register watching variety shows on one of those tiny Sony portable TVs. And I say hi to her as I slip off her shoes, put them into a shoebox, and enter the women's changing area. When I enter, I met with a perfumery of smell that I can only describe as clean. Soaps, shampoos, powders, and if steam had a scent, that would be it. I see women at various stages of the practice of going in and out of the Sento, because it is a practice, almost a ceremony of exposing oneself. There's a clear difference in the body language between those entering and those exiting the Sento. Those who are going in, they usually have a stiffness in their posture and they're looking down at the floor, hesitating to look around. But those coming out of the bath, they have a very relaxed nature. They take up more space as they're toweling off their bodies, and it's as if all of the tensions have been released from their bodies. I take my stuff and I put it into a locker, mindfully layering each item just so. You can't just shove your stuff into a locker because you're going to need that towel first when you get out of the bath. So you put your dirty clothes on the bottom, your clean clothes go in the middle, and your towel goes on top. I put so much emphasis into that towel, it's amazing that I didn't realize when I was missing my underwear. There's another towel. It's just long enough to cover my private areas, and I drape that in front of me as I make my way to the bathing area. Everyone turns and looks at me as they hear me opening the door, and I feel all eyes on me. I grab a bucket and a stool, and I make my way to a station closest to the baths. I remember when I was a really little kid, I was too scared to get into the water because it was way too hot. My aunts would try to help me out by dumping buckets of scalding water onto my body. Ooh. I say it was scalding, but it was maybe around 40 degrees, so it's not even hot enough to cook a lobster. But for me as a little kid, it was way too hot. And they say to me, "다이조부, 다이조부. You're okay, you're okay. Just get into the water for 10 seconds, and if you can do that, you'll get used to it." And they were right. Those 10 seconds were really hard, but it helped me slip my entire body into the water. As I'm looking around the bath, I see generations of women. I see little toddlers, I see children, mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, all showing me the story of life. I remember this one woman. I would see her walking into the changing area. She seemed kind of mousy. She had long hair that she would slop up into a bun on the top of her head. She had big, oversized glasses, and she would wear turtlenecks even on the hottest day in summer. I always imagined that maybe she was a librarian coming straight from work. Most people in the baths, they usually sit on stools as they're washing themselves. but she would kneel directly onto the tiles. Most people sit closest to the bath or to the sauna, but she would always sit right next to the door as if she was ready to leave at any moment. I would glimpse at her out of the corner of my eye, and what I saw was just unreal. She had the most amazing body I've ever seen. She had this Marilyn Monroe style mole right on her cheek. She had beautiful soft skin, and she had a very voluptuous body that only a tween like me could dream of growing into. I remember thinking to myself, oh, I hope I look like her one day. I found out many, many years later that she wasn't a librarian. She was actually an adult film star. And I'm the one up here talking about being naked in front of strangers. There's another woman. She kind of reminds me of that Japanese manga character, Sazaya-san. She was probably in her late 50s, and she had chin-length gray hair, and she too would kneel directly onto the tiles as she's washing herself. And I remember looking at her and seeing as she's scrubbing her back that she has a big scar on her chest where one breast used to be. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, some people have one breast. I didn't realize that I was looking at a survivor. This was long before I even knew what breast cancer was. It just seemed normal to me. There were other women in the bathhouse who also had scars, and many of those scars were cesarean scars. This one woman, outside of the bathhouse, everyone envied her because she had this really slim body that would fit the sample sizes at any store. She was so slim that she could turn sideways and disappear. But I remember overhearing her talk in the bathhouse about her struggles to have children. Her scars were the invisible ones. All of these women, they might sound like characters that you would see in a Netflix series. But for me, these women, they normalized what it means to be human, what it means to live life. I see wisdom, I see hardship, I see survivors. And I realize that underneath it all, we each have our own stories. And no matter what those stories are, we show up. For me, the bathhouse is the one place in the entire world where I feel completely comfortable being me. Outside of the bathhouse, I always felt really self-conscious. Growing up biracial in Japan meant that I stuck out like a sore thumb. People were really nice to me, but I always felt singled out. I always felt othered. So I spent a lot of time trying to be really quiet, trying not to draw attention to myself, trying to hide. But in the bathhouse, I was doing the opposite. I was revealing myself. I was peeling off the layers and somehow finding a sense of comfort that I hadn't experienced anywhere else. These women normalized what it means for me to be human. Maybe I normalized for them my uniqueness. Why was I hiding? Being naked, taking a bath with others, these are some of the most intimate things that you can do. And it opens you up not just to other people, but to yourself. The art of going to the Sento is the art of exposing oneself, only not to others, but to yourself. What if the path towards feeling completely comfortable in your own skin is actually through exposure? I'm not saying you have to get naked, but it could be the exposure of your thoughts, the exposure of your ideas, the exposure of your creativity. I think a lot about this practice of going in and out of the Sento and what it taught me about exposure and feeling comfortable with myself. Because in this process, you have to mentally prepare to reveal yourself. You accept that people are going to be looking at you. And you need to test the waters and allow yourself some time to adapt. I apply the Sento mindset to other areas of my life, especially my life as an entrepreneur. I get asked all the time, what is it like to be an entrepreneur? And my thought is, it's a lot like going to a bathhouse for the very first time. I have to mentally prepare myself for the exposure and for revealing my thoughts and my ideas. I know that people are looking at me. And I have to test the waters and sometimes endure a little bit of discomfort before I feel fully at ease. And it's this practice, this daily ritual, that helps me feel more and more myself every single day. What's one thing that you've been thinking of doing, but you're too scared because of vulnerability? How can you apply the Sento mindset to that? For you, it might not be entrepreneurship. Maybe it's a passion project. Maybe you've been wanting to write a book, but you're too scared. Or maybe you've been wanting to be an artist, but you need more exposure and for pay. I want you to think of these steps of going in and out of the bathhouse as the steps that you can take towards finding a sense of comfort within yourself and comfort with exposure. Because at the end of the day, what you'll find is a relaxed, uninhibited version of yourself. And when you practice these steps every single day, and this ritual, not of self-cleansing, but of self-awareness, it becomes second nature. And what you find is the most raw, authentic version of who you are. Thank you.